Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Hapaday Zantiro, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry. Today we have what may be one of our youngest guests ever here on the show, and it's none other than 11-year-old Jonathan Wolf. You may have seen in the paper that he recently made history by being the first middle school student from the Pacific Islands District to win a championship trophy at the annual speech and debate tournament coordinated by the National Speech and Debate Association in Salt Lake City, Utah. Jonathan and also his mom, Christine Wolf, who is also his coach. Jonathan, Christine, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour.
Hi, and we're really glad to be here.
Hi, guys.
First of all, congratulations on your win. How did it feel when you won?
It feels great to win. I was really surprised when I was able to go to nationals. That was actually a really big accomplishment for me. And it also felt really awesome. I got goosebumps when they called up the first placer, and that was me. And I was really happy. I couldn't express my feelings.
Most of us, of course, have never been to the competition. Describe to us what it was like.
It was very fun because you have done this for a long time and you're in the nationals and you're competing with other people. And
Were there a lot of other students there?
There was a lot, yes. It's my first competition in the nationals. There was a lot of people, and I was really scared because it was a whole bunch of people that went to nationals, and I didn't know what kind of techniques or knowledge or what kind of pieces they're doing and if it's going to be way better than mine. So I felt pretty nervous when I was up there.
I understand you were like one of the youngest competitors there.
Yes, I was.
And one of the shortest.
Yes, I was.
You were kind of describing how the camera was panning across the winners, and when it came to you, kind of had to tilt down
Yes.
and then go back up.
Yes.
Yeah, that was funny.
Was it intimidating when you, your first time there, you're one of the youngest, was it intimidating at all?
Yes, it was. A lot.
How were you able to overcome that?
Well, I just prayed and I had confidence in myself and I just went along, and I didn't really I would say I didn't care if they were like taller than me. It's how you perform your piece. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So you won first place in a category called declamation.
Yes.
What is declamation?
Declamation category is when you perform a speech, like a famous speech.
Okay.
And a famous speech that, like a famous person spoke, and a lot of my competitors did a very funny kind of modern pieces, and I was the one doing the old time March 1775 speech, and I was pretty scared because the judges might not know the piece, and also they might not know what I'm talking about when I was performing my piece.
What was the speech that you delivered? And in the second half of the show, we're going to ask you to recite it. But what was the speech that you chose?
The speech that I chose was Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. It was by Patrick Henry, and he gave it on March 1775 in Richmond, Virginia.
Why did you choose that speech?
I chose that speech because I wanted to feel how it feels to be famous. And after reading and watching videos about Patrick Henry doing his Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech, I really wanted to feel how that felt, where he was speaking about where he was encouraging the United States of America. And I really wanted to feel how that felt So I decided to do that speech.
Do you feel you kind of like took on his persona, or like you were him almost when you were giving the speech?
Yes, I kind of felt like that. And I didn't want to go all out Patrick Henry. I didn't want to, be exactly like him. I also wanted to put myself inside there.
How did you put yourself into the speech? Obviously, it's 3 centuries later. How did you feel you as a 6th grader could put yourself into that speech?
Well, the only thing that I put myself in there, or like how I decided to put myself in there, I chose what actions I wanted to do and when I wanted to move from place to place. And I also wanted to like do some parts and cut out some parts that he did. I didn't want to do the whole speech that he said.
How did you decide what parts to cut out?
The parts that I had to cut out, well, my coach also helped me with that because,
Was it because of the time length?
yes, it was the time
Ah.
length. It was mostly about that.
Okay. I do want to talk to your coach and your mom a little bit more, but one more question. Why did you choose declamation as a category? I mean, there are lots of different categories that you could have chosen for. What is it about this category that interests you?
This category interests me because, like I already said, I want to feel how it feels to be famous. I want to give a famous speech. So when I give out a famous speech, it kind of makes me feel that I'm the person giving out the famous speech. I wanted to feel a little bit of that. And also, this is something really different that I always do. I always do prose and humorous interpretation, which is both funny, and I've also done dramatic, which is, dramatic. And yeah. And I couldn't do really good on that. So when declamation came out, I was really, that's pretty cool. You get to recite a famous speech.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to try that out, and it looks like I'm really good at it. So that's why I picked declamation.
It looks like you're really, really good at it. Well, Coach, tell us, how did you feel when Jonathan won? They called his name as the champion.
It's I couldn't explain the feeling.
Did you cry?
No, I was shaking, and I was actually taking pictures at that time. And when they didn't call him on the 3rd place part, that's when I started getting all excited, because on his other category he placed 3rd. So on this one, when they didn't call him on the 3rd place, I'm like, oh wow, he's probably 2nd place. And then they called the runner-up, and it wasn't him. So that's when I got all shaky. I was kneeling on the carpet close to the stage taking pictures, and when they called his name for this year's declamation champion, it felt really good, and I felt that his hard work has really paid off.
So how hard does he actually work to become good at what he does? How much time do you spend working on his presentations?
On trying to cut the piece, both me and him, we go through it and see whether is this a good part to cut or not. But the actual practice, since I work, we try to practice after dinner. And it depends on school activities also. If he has a lot of school work that he has to do during the time that he gets home, then he tries to do that while I'm at work. And then sometimes it rolls over to after dinner, so we don't get to practice at that time. But we do try also on our way to the competition to practice as much as we can.
And it's a long flight, so you have plenty
yes,
plenty of time to
that's
practice.
a lot of time in between, so we do try, aside from trying to catch some rest also.
Now, Jonathan isn't your only child, actually, that's involved in speech and debate. Tell us
Yes.
how you, as a mom, got your children into this type of activity. Is it something you maybe saw that your oldest son had a talent in, or how did you guys get involved in this in the first place?
Actually, my sister, when she was still in school, she joined the speech and debate. She's a very good orator. She debates really well, and she's won in that in those activities. And so when she had her kids, her oldest daughter started doing this, and that's when my boys weren't involved yet, and I watched how it was a really fun activity, and it builds self-confidence, and it slashes away your fear of speaking, to where at times you just keep on talking and not being ashamed to
Share
speak.
your ideas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's when I felt, okay, let's see if they can pull this off, and they did. So she really inspired me to do this, and she has shown me that you can not only hone your kids to it, but it can really bring out the talent of the child.
Jonathan, tell us, what are some of the things you have to think about when or work on in order to give a good speech? I mean, obviously you need to memorize it, but what are some of the other things you work on?
Well, in order to create the speech, I would say the hardest part about it was finding a book, a really good story, and that's the first hardest part. The second hardest part about it is you have to cut it so it would fit the time. But memorizing and, actions are pretty easy.
Pretty easy. Okay, so the hard part is finding the actual speech that you want to give first, or the
Yes.
piece that you want to give. Do you find that your training helps you in other areas of your life?
Yes.
How?
Oh, yes. Because since I do this and I speak on front of hundreds of people when I was performing this, it also made me build self-confidence. So at school, after doing this, I didn't have the fear of speaking in front of a lot of people. So I'd really raise my hand up and I'd volunteer to present. Even in front of the whole school, that's okay with me because I've done this for a long time and I know how it feels to be in front of a lot of people. So it helps me in other places like school.
Well, our guest today is Jonathan Wolf, the champion of the declamation category at the recent National Speech and Debate Association in Salt Lake City, Utah. He's the first middle school student from the Pacific Islands District to win this award. And when we come back, we're going to hear that award-winning speech.
Hafa Day, this is Eulalia Villagomez of the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. Did you know that you can donate up to $5,000 to the Humanities Council through the CNMI Education Tax Credit Program? Donations from individuals and corporations qualify and can be used to offset your local wage and salary tax, BGRT, and earnings tax. Call our office at 235-4785 to see how you can support humanities programs in our community and obtain a tax credit for your donation. Thank you, and Sizus Masi.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. Our guests today are a championship in the declamation category, Jonathan Wolf from the National Speech and Debate Association's competition held recently in Salt Lake City. He's here with his coach and his mom, Christine. Jonathan, would you do us the privilege of giving us your award-winning speech?
I would.
Thank you so much.
With very little schooling, 29-year-old Patrick Henry was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses. He later became governor of the state and led to the opposition to the Stamp Act of 1765, a direct tax imposed by the British Parliament. March 23, 1775, St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia. The United States of America had to decide whether or not to mobilize our men for independence instead of continuously trying to find hope or peace with the British ministry asserting, "Give me liberty or give me death." His passionate speech was an immortalized closing line. This speech follows. Mr. President, no man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism, as well as the abilities of the very honorable gentleman who have just addressed this House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore I hope it will not be thought disrespectful of those worthy gentlemen if, entertaining as I do, an opinion of a character very opposite to theirs, I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. The question before this House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it as no less than a question of freedom or slavery. Mr. President, it is natural to man to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no way of judging the future, but by the past. And judging by the past, I wish to know what has there been in the conduct of the British ministry for the last 10 years to justify these hopes of peace and reconciliation. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? Ask yourself how this gracious reception of our petition comports to these warlike preparations which darken our waters and cover our land. Are fleets and armies necessary to a work of love? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation. I ask, gentlemen, sir, what means this martial array, if its purpose be not to force us to submission? Can gentlemen assign any other possible motive to it? Has Great Britain any enemy to call for all this vast accumulation of navies and armies? No, sir, she has none. They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They are sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains of which the British ministry have been so long forging. We have held the subject up in every light of which it is capable, but it has been all in vain. Shall we resort to entreaty and humble supplication? What new terms shall we find which have not already been exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves. We have done everything that could be done to avert the storm which is now coming on. Our petitions have been slighted. Our remonstrances have produced additional violence and insult. Our supplications disregarded, and we have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne. In vain, sir! There is no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve and violate those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, and if we mean ourselves never basely to abandon the noble struggle for which we have been so long engaged, and have pledged ourselves never to abandon until the glorious object of our contest shall be obtained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left us. They tell us, sir, we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be in the next week? Or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and a British Guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemies shall abound us hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone, it is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged, the war is inevitable, and let it come, I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field, sir. Why stand we here idle? What does that gentleman wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty, or give me death. Thank you very much.
How do you feel when you give that speech?
I feel like, well, I would say I feel like I'm famous, technically. I feel like nobody can do this speech. Like I feel and I tell myself that you can do this, you can do this. I feel really good. I feel like I'm owning the stage right now. Or not right now, but
Well, I think you own the stage right now also. You know, when you started talking, I got goosebumps. Which is so weird because I know you're Jonathan and I know we are not in that setting, but I think it's your passion behind your delivery seems like you said, almost like you are the person. You feel like you are that famous person and it really comes across.
yes. I really feel really good. I felt and I still feel that I'm really good when I performed this speech because I've been practicing and I've been memorizing and I've done a lot and I put all my strength into the speech, also in my other speeches. But after winning first place, I knew this was my strongest piece.
Obviously. You also competed in, or you won third place actually in another category. Can you share with us about that?
Yes, I won third place in my humorous interpretation. I did a really funny speech, and those are the only two speeches that I made to finals. I joined 3 events, my prose, my reading. I didn't make it because I saw those other pieces and they were, I could tell that they were really good and their pieces were gonna be better than mine. But even though I saw that, I still wanted to try to push for that event, but I didn't make it. But I was still really happy to make for humorous and declamation.
And I understand your partner was Kate Ishida in the
Yes.
humorous interpretation. And there's actually a group of you that went. Was there, other than, of course, yourself and Kate, but was there anybody else in the group who kind of stood out to you as you feel they did a good job?
Yes. I really feel that a lot of them, all of them technically, did a really, really good job. I saw their pieces and I've never seen them before. And I really liked it when I saw them. It was funny. Really funny, and I actually really like those pieces. I was telling my mom that, what if I do some of these speeches next year? But then she's like, well, we can do that, but we could also like still search for other pieces that I might want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they did really good. They did a really good job.
And they made good, you felt you liked their selections of what they
Yes,
presented.
I really did like their selections.
Now, we need your advice because I would consider you an expert now that you're a champion. And what I want to ask you your advice on is, one of the biggest fears they say among people is speaking in public. Public speaking is like the greatest fear of most people. So, based on your championship status, can you please help the rest of us who don't like to speak in front of groups, don't want to speak in the meeting, don't want to help us out? What can we do to get over this fear?
Well, like I heard on TV, that all you have to do is think of the judges, or not the judges, but the students, or anybody that you're speaking to, Imagine them sitting in their underpants.
I've heard this before. Okay.
I know.
Does it work?
Everyone heard that, but for me, it doesn't really work because if I imagine that, I'm gonna be laughing.
Okay, that's the way. I don't find that doesn't really work for me.
I would laugh. I'd say my speech, and if I imagine, I'm gonna
Lose your concentration.
yes, I'm gonna lose my concentration, and I'm gonna start laughing, and I won't be able to perform well. But an advice I would really like to give out to other people is practice, practice. Please just practice as much as you can, so you can have that confidence to stand in front of a lot of people and deliver your piece. Practice is one of the things that I do a lot. And my mom is really tough when it comes to practicing because she really loves us. She really likes us doing this competition. So she really wants us to do our best. So she just keeps on practicing and practicing and practicing with us.
Yeah. Do you ever get tired, or are you always like, "Yeah, Mom, let's practice"?
Yeah, let's practice. The only time I get tired really is when it turns nighttime because you're trying to practice, you're trying to give it all your best because like I say, my brother say, even my mom says perform your piece as okay, how do I say this? While you're practicing, perform your piece as if you were gonna perform it in the actual competition. So if you were performing it like, oh yeah, that's not how you're gonna be in your competition. We want ourselves to practice our pieces as if we were in the actual competition already. So we have an idea of how we have to present our pieces. And while we're practicing, we do make some updates on our actions, and we also give ourselves advice on words that we can put in there and change some words and cut out lines to fit the time.
So is there anybody else that you would like to thank other than your mom? Or Coach, is there anybody you would like to thank that has helped make this possible?
Yes, ma'am. I really want to thank you for doing this for me. This really helps me, so thank you for doing this for me. And I would also like to thank my mom, my coach, for doing this for me, for letting me practice and do my best. And I would also like to thank the companies that have helped fund my trip. And I'd also like to thank my parents and my siblings too for helping, praying for me, knowing that I can do this. And I would also like to thank my grandparents. And I'd also like to thank the governor for letting me have my own car on the 4th of July parade.
Oh, right.
That was really nice of them. And I would also want to thank my late Auntie Anna for getting us into this because without her, we wouldn't, well, my mom would know, but we wouldn't have known that this competition was even running or that this competition even existed. We thought, well, when you grow up, you gotta act in a movie. You just straight up act in a movie. We didn't know that there was a competition to help you with speech and debate. So when my late Auntie Anna helped us, I really wanted to show her that I can do my best. And I will continue doing my best on all my competitions, no matter what happens.
Coach, any final thoughts before we go?
None really. And other than hoping that they won't get tired doing this until high school. I'm sure they'll still pursue it, and I'm glad that they're enjoying it. And just for the boys and for all the support we had, the PSS, our district director, Harold Easton, I'd like to thank him because he kept this activity running. And for the school, of course, his school, Dan Middle School, they're very supportive. I thank them a lot. And for my parents, because it takes a lot of them too with having me do this aside from babysitting. Yes. But yes, practices, they're also always there if I needed a ride or a help, a backup, they're there. So that's it.
A lot of people in your corner, Jonathan, rooting for you and
Yes.
supporting you. Well, we wish you all the best, and I wouldn't be surprised if you and I have another conversation about something else related to some of your accomplishments in the future. So just, when you become rich and famous, just, keep an opening for me in case I ever need you to come back on my show. Is that okay?
Okay.
We-
Remember,
we-
if I ever become rich and famous.
You will be successful, I feel. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Our guests today have been Jonathan Wolf and his coach and mother, Christine. Of course, he won a championship trophy in the declamation category at the annual Speech and Debate tournament coordinated by the National Speech and Debate Association, which was held in Salt Lake City, Utah. He's the first middle school student from the Pacific Islands District to win a championship trophy, and we congratulate him. This has been Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.